Gaspee was a revenue cutter of the Royal Navy that was operating in Rhode Island waters, annoying and harassing the ship owners and the crews who were engaged in maritime trade. And they got so fed up that one day a trading ship called the Hannah was working her way up Narragansett Bay, and the Gaspee came along and instructed the Hannah that it should pull up and allow itself to be inspected, boarded, and potentially seized by Her Majesty's government. They were doing a lot of that, by the way, and it might have come back to bite them. There was a ship called the Fortune, which was owned by a Rhode Islander, was seized, taken up to Boston, sold, and at the time, one of the owners was not all that involved in the activities that led to the revolution, but he got a little bit motivated when his boat got seized and its cargo seized and all of his goods taken and shipped back to, the value shipped back to the king. He was Nathaniel Greene. He ended up becoming Washington's aide-de-camp. He ended up running the Southern campaign for George Washington, and the British general who was trying to manage the American Revolution wrote back to his wife, "That damn Greene is more dangerous than Washington." So it can be provoking to have your ship seized. Anyway, there's the Hannah sailing up the bay. Here comes the Gaspee in hot pursuit. The Hannah has a wily captain who knows the waters quite well and sails the Hannah over shallows where a river comes in to the bay and leaves a sandy trail along the bottom. And so the Hannah shoots over the shallows, and along comes the rather bigger, more lumbering Gaspee and grinds into the sandbar. And it's stuck. And the tide is falling. So it's going to be there for a while. So up goes the Hannah to Providence, reports on how they tricked the Gaspee into grounding itself on this sandbar. And that night, drums are beat on the streets of Providence, refreshments are served, and a gang of worthy Rhode Islanders decide to go down and fix the Gaspee for once and for all. And 6 or 7 longboats rowed down that night under cover of darkness with muffled oars, and they approached the Gaspee. They told its captain to surrender or they would board it and sack it. Captain Duddingston said he was not going to do that. There was an exchange of gunfire, and the captain of the ship, whose actual rank was lieutenant, Lieutenant Duddingston, was shot in that exchange. He survived his wounds. He was taken ashore by the Rhode Islanders, provided medical care, and ended up retiring back to his native Scotland, all well. But that moment was probably the first blood drawn in the conflict that ultimately became the American Revolution. So they did, in fact, take over the boat. They swarmed up the sides of it. They captured the crew. They took them all ashore. And then they went back out and they lit the boat on fire. And here's a rendition of what the Gaspee looked like burning, stuck on the sandbar. And of course, when the fire got to the powder magazine, boom, it went off like a bomb. And we're still trying to find pieces of the Gaspee there, but it got blown to such smithereens that nobody has yet been able to find anything, despite some fairly diligent efforts. And we love the Gaspee in Rhode Island. Here's a new license plate commemorating Gaspee Days, showing the Gaspee all on fire, getting ready to blow up. And here's what's interesting about it. I did an interview with the Washington Post, and I'd ask unanimous consent to have that interview appended at the end of my remarks here.
Without objection.
And this is from that article. Pretty much everybody here, I suspect all of the pages who are here on the floor, know exactly what the Boston Tea Party is. Massachusetts had seen to it over many, many years that everybody in America knows what the Boston Tea Party was. Well, as the story relates, 18 months before colonists dumped tea in Boston Harbor, Rhode Islanders attacked and destroyed a British Navy ship off the coast near Providence, furious with what they saw as the Crown's overreach. 18 months before. You know, in Rhode Island, we sometimes have a little chip on our shoulder about being overlooked by our bigger northern neighbor, our northern suburb, some might say. But you know, when you actually blow up the damn boat, and that's lost to history, but then up in Massachusetts, more than a year later, they push tea bags off the boat into the harbor, and they get the credit for the great revolutionary activity. I want to come to the floor and do my very best to make that correction to history. And one of the things that's nice is that people are starting to write more and more about this. And I'll close by referencing the burning of His Majesty's schooner Gaspee, a history of the events surrounding that incident by Stephen Park. And then in Nick Bunker's book, An Empire on the Edge, he has an entire chapter inside the dark affair, the Gaspee incident, that describes what was done. And our Secretary of State's office put together this presentation on the Gaspee Affair, and it was titled Gaspee, the Spark That Ignited the American Revolution. So I'm here to commend the Rhode Islanders who struck that spark 18 months before those Massachusetts worthies drank their share of whatever they needed to do to actually get on a boat and push tea bags into the harbor. Pretty brave. Nothing against them doing that, but I mean seriously. We captured the boat, we shot the captain, and then we blew the damn boat up. I think that merits mention in American history. And with that, I yield the floor.